Welcome to the 33rd installment of Ear to the Ground, the Land Stewardship Project's audio magazine podcast. Ear to the Ground features interviews and field reports related to sustainable agriculture, family farming, local food systems, and local democracy. I'm your host, Brian DeVore, editor of the Land Stewardship Letter. 2007 is the 10th anniversary of the Land Stewardship Project's Farm Beginnings program. This initiative provides first-hand training in low-cost, sustainable methods of farming. Farm Beginnings participants learn goal setting, financial planning, business plan creation, alternative marketing, and innovative production techniques. The key to the program's success is that it is community-based, with classes being taught by local, established farmers and other agricultural professionals from the area. The course was originally launched in southeast Minnesota and later expanded to other parts of the state. In 2005, Farm Beginnings was extended to Illinois and Nebraska. Beginning the fall of 2007, Farm Beginnings classes will be held in North Dakota. During the past decade, over 300 people have graduated from the Minnesota Region Farm Beginnings program, and 60% of them are actively farming. These grads represent a variety of farming enterprises: livestock, vegetables, grains, specialty products, you name it. Two of those 300 graduates are Roger and Michelle Benrud, who, after graduating from college, enrolled in the very first Farm Beginnings class offered. A decade later, the Benruds, who are now in their mid-30s, milk around 100 cows near Goodhue in southeast Minnesota. They use a grass-based system called managed rotational grazing to keep costs down, improve animal health, and protect the environment. This system has also allowed the Benruds to become certified organic and tap into a specialty food market through a small cheese and butter cooperative called Pastureland. They feel the farm is on sound financial footing and is providing a good quality of life for them and their two children, Emily, age 7, and Calvin, who is 2. Their neighbors, though skeptical at first that anyone could get a viable farming operation started these days, are beginning to recognize the positive role young farmers like the Benruds can play in the community. In 2006, they were named the Goodhue County Farm Family of the Year. Not every day on the farm is a bucolic paradise, of course, but the Benruds are making a go of it at a time when the conventional wisdom is that there is no future for family farms. On a recent spring morning, they took a break from farm work to talk to me about their operation, how Farm Beginnings has served them over the years, and where they are at in the process of meeting their goals. We started out talking about why they chose managed rotational grazing as a milk production system.
It wasn't any one thing, I guess. It was, kind of a conservation ethic, soil conservation. You know, it's argued that it's more efficient to have those animals harvesting the feed instead of, using machinery to do it. But the trade-off on that is we do get, and especially with our experimenting without feeding grain in the summertime, we get quite a bit less production per cow, and that's part of why we run more cows. We do have smaller cows too, which is another reason. What got us into Farm Beginnings was actually answering an ad in the paper that was looking for dairy farmers in southeast Minnesota, and kind of a vague ad, and it got us in the door, and we had already been involved a little bit in grazing just through seeing it in magazines and with some local SFA chapter meetings.
And we had bought some beef cows too. I think shortly after you were out of college, we had purchased some beef cows, and there was some permanent pasture here on his home place that we grazed our beef cows on, and we set up little paddocks for the 10 beef cows we had, and started doing some rotational grazing with them. And through Farm Beginnings, or during that time, we were looking at different ways we could run 260 acres and make a full-time living out of it for the both of us. Yeah. Because that was kind of our goal, is that we both wanted to be involved with it. And we looked at everything from, direct marketing, beef and poultry and that type of thing, to grapes. What else?
Milking goats. Just about anything you can think of, except probably serious vegetable gardening. I guess we didn't look at that.
Yeah, we never really entertained that. But I grew up on a dairy farm, and so I did have some dairy farming background. And with him working on the dairy farm, he was learning more about that.
And I grew up around dairy, too. My cousins did, spent some time at their places. A lot of my friends did, so when I went to their house, we'd spend time in the barn. Yeah.
And as we ran, financial numbers with all of these different enterprises we looked at, it always came back that dairy would pay the bills a lot better than anything else if you were willing to put in the labor and be there twice a day to milk. And so eventually we decided that, we wanted to give it a go. When we started, the grazing was being billed as, and probably is, a lower cost method of getting started. We milk in a barn that hadn't previously been milked in since the 1940s. We don't own the land. We rent it from Roger's parents. We couldn't get financing to put up a big barn to dairy in. If we wanted to dairy farm here on his home farm, we had to find a way to do it given the parameters that were around us. And the grazing was a good way to do it. We could easily build fence on the land and plant grass seed and convert that old barn into a milking parlor, rather than needing to put up buildings and manure pits and things like that. And as we've gone along, organics become a part of it for us. After we farmed 3 years, just as grass farmers, we realized that, hey, we're doing things pretty much organically. Let's seek that certification as well and get some premium money for our milk. And as time has gone on, I think conservation and environmental things have become more and more important as we look at how we farm. A lot of times we make decisions with thinking about the implications to the environment more necessarily than to our pocketbook. And sometimes that's hurt us maybe a little bit financially, but we feel we're doing the right thing with the land that we've been given.
Looking back on that Farm Beginnings course you took a decade ago, what do you feel you ultimately got out of it? What has really stuck with you?
Well, I think we said for a long time, it probably still is. If you think about how we met a lot of these people, the networking is probably the number one thing. But also I guess you'd call it basic holistic management training, on goal setting and questioning things, I guess. I do find myself kind of forgetting how, as time has passed, the saying that networking was the big thing doesn't really jump out at me, because I've kind of forgotten how, I met this person through this person. Well, yeah, but if you go back that chain far enough, it's somebody we met through Farm Beginnings a lot of times,
Yeah, there's a lot of people that we've, that are in, a 60-mile radius here that we can, or when we started, we could call on with questions, or that, came to a Farm Beginnings class and spoke, or we went to their farm for a tour, and we still network with a lot of them today through grazing groups and, other types of things.
I guess you could kind of do the 6 degrees of grazing or something like.
But yeah, the goal setting also was a big part of it, and I always tell Karen Stetler that, I hate that, and when she says the class is going through that was the worst part of the whole thing, because it made us sit down and talk to each other and put it on paper, which is a scary thing, because if you put your goals down, it's easier to realize if you don't meet them, and we don't do it as often as we should, and we don't do it formally necessarily always, but Roger and I still, very often will talk about and go back to know, what is it that we actually want and where are we going, rather, and some of that, like I mentioned, comes through with how we make our decisions. We try to take into the environmental aspects, or how does it affect other people, being his folks, or the people that we're involved with through Pastureland or whatever it is. How does it affect more than just us? And a lot of that goes back to HM, or the goal setting.
Farm Beginnings also kind of got your operation off the ground through an interest-free revolving livestock loan that Heifer International helped LSP provide. How important was that?
But that was very important to help us get started, because being able to get those animals helped us be able to finance other animals, because once you've got a milk check, you can, people are more willing to talk to you, but getting those first 15 that was hard for us, or before we had that secured, it was harder.
It also helped. We got some financing through my folks too. We were fortunate that they had money they were looking to invest. I had taken my dad around to some farmers that I had met through Farm Beginnings, and kind of introduced him more and more to grazing and outwintering and some of these crazy things we do that seemed so foreign at the time. And he was coming around, but I think it really helped that we kind of got another endorsement basically from the Heifer Project loan, that being accepted by that and having access to that many more cows, I think really helped him have a little bit of confidence in us. And I think, 7 years later, or 8 years later, whatever it is now, I think he's, pretty confident that we're doing all right. He's gotten a lot of compliments from neighbors about how the place looks nice with the cattle out there and things that have made him feel good, I think. So.
You originally sold through conventional markets when you got started, but now you're selling your milk through Pastureland Cooperative, which has won several national awards for its butter.
Yep, Pastureland was formed in 1999 or 2000. Before we even had cows, we were involved with Pastureland because we knew it was something that if it got up and going, we wanted to be a part of. Currently at 7 farms in the area spanning from, New Prague
to Altura.
To Altura, yep. Southeast corner of Minnesota. We're all grass-based dairies. In summer, we graze pasture and feed nothing else, or maybe a little bit of dry hay if the cows want to nibble on some, but no grain. And it's growing. Our sales of our products have grown. We have butter and cheese, and we make them only in the summer. The 100% grass-fed has been a big part of our market too. Consumers are asking for that. They don't want grain in the diet of their dairy.
I know one thing Farm Beginnings provides is instruction on how to add value to what you're raising by using alternative markets such as organics, direct marketing, grass-based niches, etc. In the case of dairy farming, the class tries to get across the message that farmers who are taking extra care to produce that milk shouldn't be satisfied just to let a conventional processor pay a low price for a raw bulk commodity.
I mean, we did that for the first 3.5 years we dairied, but all the time we were working with, we knew that we were producing a better product, or we felt that we were producing a better product. The way we graze our cows and the way our milk is different than somebody else who feeds them, stored feeds and lots of grains. And so kind of all along, I think we knew that, our product should be worth something more. So if we can join up with somebody or find something that would pay us some premium money for that, it'd be worth it. And so,
yeah. I think a lot of that came from Farm Beginnings,
I think too. From
hearing about people that we might have had some people speak that were marketing different ways.
Could be.
I don't remember.
Well, some of them were organic, I think, at the time.
Some of them might have just been field days we went to.
Right.
Although when we ran through the gamut of all the different things we could do, from the grapes to the beef to the poultry to the whatever, another reason we chose dairy, not just to pay the bills, is that neither of us are people. Or if we want to farm, I want to farm. I don't want to haul my butt to the farmer's market 4 days a week and have to talk to people. Neither one of us want to be out there peddling product. We farm because we love to farm, and so Pastureland has made us do some of that because it's small and been growing, but it's always been a little bit fearful in the back of my mind that I'm going to have to go out there and sell.
I've talked to other Farm Beginnings graduates who say that one strength of the program is the classes are taught by established farmers and other ag professionals.
It's different than a university where it's all theoretical and this is how it's supposed to work. It is people who actually do it.
It does lend a little more credibility, especially when you're talking about something that is not a mainstream type way of doing something. It lends more credibility to it to see successful, happy people that are doing that.
Yeah.
And that was another big part of Farm Beginnings, is it was encouragement. It was, we network with people, but rather than the people that you'd see locally that you'd mention you maybe wanted to start dairy farming, and you'd get the, well, why do you want to do that type of question, or, well, you're nuts. You'd get encouragement in people who were doing it and were enjoying farming and not just counting the days till they could sell the cows, or, those type of things. And so the type of people that we met, or that, it was encouraging, and it's upbeat, and it's, there's still bad days when you farm, but all in all, this is a good way to do it. And what? You tell yourself that some days, Roger.
Some days you have to really try to grimace when you get those words out. But, there's something else that you asked earlier about why we like grazing, and I think I don't want to forget to say it, is that we like the family aspect of it. It seems, I think there are varying degrees in any kind of farming of risk and things, but I think our situation is pretty family friendly. At the risk of any social workers getting on my case, we've sent our 7-year-old out to get the cows already, and it's amazing how much she knows about what's going on.
The day-to-day operations.
Some days it's a little annoying when she tries to give a third opinion to our 2 opinions of what we should do with, if we're discussing where to put the cows or something.
She told me the other day, we should really graze this little shorter, Mom. You're giving him too much feed, she said.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's a lot of time that we can spend together. I just the other day, and people, that's something too that through, I guess, either holistic management or learning it in Farm Beginnings, we were just talking the other day about how we could be more efficient if we would work separately more. And for some people that's great, but, we were having a good time doing what we were doing.
And having both of us work on it didn't make it go twice as fast, but it makes the chore a lot more enjoyable if there's
and so
two there.
You have, there's give and take, and being the most efficient and making the most money. If it isn't any fun, then that's maybe not great either.
Right.
And I think, even though, I think in Farm Beginnings, most of the types of operations that are presented are family friendly. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's risk in different things, and if you're a vegetable farmer, there's probably certain aspects of your operation you don't want to, make your 7-year-old do too much of, and we wouldn't let her work with our bulls, and there are different things, but there's a lot more opportunity for those kids than some real big farm where
highly
mechanized and they really shouldn't be around that stuff for fear of getting hurt. And
you told me earlier that one of your goals when you got started farming was to have the farm support both of you financially without the help of an off-farm job within 5 years. Michelle, you helped support the family right out of college by working for IBM in Rochester, and I believe in 2005 you quit there, which was, I think you told me, 2 months shy of that 5-year anniversary. You've attained a pretty major milestone, one that many farm families never attain. You both work full-time on the farm and are earning enough to make it financially. Looking back over the past decade, are there any other major goals that you haven't reached yet?
Land ownership was something that, we probably would have hoped going into it that we would have actually been owning some land or, paying for some land. And
the other thing I think that we would have thought we would have, or I know I would have thought we had by now, was some hired labor, some steady hired labor, so that we could take more vacations.
And not that we couldn't afford that either. It's the whole we're not people thing.
Yeah, we've shied away from that because of,
every time we talk about it, it's like, oh, it's too big of a pain, we'll just do it ourselves.
Yeah, so that
it's
too
not
is
become a big enough priority
issue.
yet.
It hasn't
become a big enough priority yet. Yeah. I mean, there will become a day when we become sick of it enough that having someone milk 3 times a week for us would be nice, right, or whatever the case may be, and then we'll do it. But
yeah, I envisioned by this time we would have maybe a share milker or somebody that we could just say, we feel like going away this weekend. You can handle it.
It's only 7 years. I don't know that I'd say that just 7 years after starting. That to me, that's like a 15-year goal. Okay. The share milk.
Well, maybe 10,
I mean, and 10. Looking long term, that is one of the goals too, is to be able to bring somebody in or help somebody else get started and those type of things.
And we are now actually doing kind of a mentoring.
Oh yeah,
project.
we are. Yeah, with another couple that are Farm Beginnings graduates that are interested in dairy and. From the Twin Cities that don't really have any dairy background, but they came down about every third weekend all winter, and they spent a week with us this spring during our calving time, and they lived in the other house where Roger's folks live. They were in Arizona yet, and they spent 7 days, I think, 6-7 days with us, and and this is continuing. They were just here this last weekend, and I'll be here again the 9th of June, and so we're starting to do some of the giving back, like, I'd kind of hoped, but it's not I mean, we hope to continue that and maybe on a bigger scale, too someday. But yeah, well, and it's just different down the road between here and Goodhue in the 6 miles. There's three less dairy farms than there were 10 years ago, when we started, and we were one who starts, and that's a pretty. Yeah. It's and it wasn't like we even found some old barn that had been milked in. We kind of started from scratch here, and so it's different, and it's not happening very often. And I think it's a good thing, and I hope more people can continue.
For more on Farm Beginnings, see www.farmbeginnings.org. That's www.farmbeginnings.org. Or you can call 507-523-3366. Send your comments and suggestions about this podcast to me, Brian DeVore, at bdevore@landstewardshipproject.org. You can also call me at 612-729-6294. A special thank you goes out to Laura Borgendale, a Western Minnesota musician who provided Ear to the Ground's theme music. And a very special thank you to all of Land Stewardship Project's members who make initiatives such as this podcast possible. If you're not a member and would like to support us, go to landstewardshipproject.org to learn how to join LSP. Thanks for listening.